Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 15. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us on this Monday, Steelers Nation Day. 48 hours until the Pittsburgh Steelers and rest of the NFL has to trim down their rosters to an initial 53-man group. Pittsburgh already beginning their cuts before the weekend began. So a lot to talk about. Dave, how you doing?
Happy Monday. It's hurry up and wait time, right? So I don't know. The Steelers, I think, have a practice this afternoon. And then I would imagine after that, some of the early cuts or next wave of cuts start to leak out and all. So yeah, Tuesday by 4:00, this team's got to be down to a 53-man active roster, and a lot of interesting decisions in there. Some tough predictions to make, especially when it comes to a couple of the banged up players that have been banged up most of the preseason there. But I think you and I have our final roster predictions out, and we'll go over some other news and notes happening with this team as we sit here and wait.
As you said, Dave, hurry up, wait, and refresh. A lot of F5 doing over this next couple of days as Pittsburgh gets their roster down from the initial 91. Now it's down to 80, and it's down to 80 because on Friday, following the team's practice, the team released 11 players. I'll read them off to you. We'll talk about them. Long snapper Jake McQuaid, edge Kenny Willekes, defensive back Cam Alexander, safety Quindell Johnson, corner Kyler McMichael, corner Mikey Victor, offensive tackle Julian Pearl, offensive lineman, really a guard, Doug Nestor, quarterback Logan Woodside, running back Evan Hull, and tight end Kevin Fulch. None of those names were really threatening for a 53-man roster spot, so it didn't change the complexion of the outlook of this team. Johnson was a veteran, thought maybe pre-camp had a chance to stick, but Chuck Clark signing really took that away. McQuaid's release would indicate the team has a decent level of confidence. Christian Kuntz will be ready for week one. If not, maybe McQuaid gets signed to the practice squad and elevated. Nestor was kind of maybe a potential sleeper pre-camp, but didn't really work out for him. And Hull got beat out by Lou Nichols' impressive in-stadium preseason performance.
Yeah, I think technically Woodside and McQuaid were terminations and not subject to waivers. I think everybody else may have been subject to waivers. I think Woodside and McQuaid were the only. I know McQuaid for sure, and I think Woodside has been around long enough that he's vested and all. But yeah, when you look, I mean, in that initial before Chuck Clark came along, I had Quindell Johnson as potentially maybe in my pre-training camp 53-man roster as a guy that could potentially stick, but obviously once Chuck Clark came along, that was that. And then Quindell really didn't do anything other than I think he had, what did he have, a hit or something that or he recovered a fumble caused by, I forget who caused a fumble in one of those preseason games. I think Quindell Johnson recovered it and all, but nothing much there. Kenny Willekes was obviously one of those last guys in the door. I think Cam Alexander was a late add. Pearl was a late add, so none of those guys were a surprise overall. I think the main thing positive, as you mentioned, there is McQuaid going out the door that early. Obviously, a good sign when it comes to the health of Christian Kuntz and his sternum.
Johnson recovered that fumble after Deshaun Jameson forced it in that
That's
preseason.
right.
I think that was the Tampa Bay game after his running into the kicker a little bit later, saved some face there. Fulch was bouncing on and off the roster. We'll see if any of these guys return to the practice squad. They could. They're all eligible, but given they got the heave-ho initially, the odds aren't great for those guys to circle back.
Right. The only one to watch might be McQuaid, and that's only because kind of wondering about the status maybe needing an elevation, maybe if something goes wrong with Christian Kuntz or something.
Looks like maybe Sebastian Castro will get a practice squad spot, beating out Quindell Johnson. The team pretty relatively thin at safety for a training camp roster. I think there's only 5 on the team right now. Of course, your 4 that are likely to make it: Elliott, Thornhill, uh, Miles Killebrew, and Chuck Clark, and then Castro. So Castro could be that 5th guy. Maybe Daryl Porter does get that practice squad spot that Terrell Austin hinted at, given that corners in McMichael and Victor were released.
Uh-huh.
All right, Dave, should we just dive on into our latest and last roster predictions? How much tougher, before we get into the details, how much tougher was making this one, or easier, compared to past years, do you think, for yourself?
Oh, I don't know if I stack them up in my head. I mean, the biggest thing that you're trying to play with, especially, I mean, it's tough every year. I sit there and overanalyze probably 3 to 4 players, I think, every year. I think I've got a pretty good track record of hitting at least 49 to 50 a year, at least on the 53-man roster. But I think probably globally that's probably about average anyway. I mean, you're always stuck with a few decisions, and then obviously if you're talking about an initial 53-man roster, you don't know about some of the maybe the extra minutia, and maybe a yo-yo player here and there to maybe accommodate a guy that you don't want to send directly to IR as designated to return. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know where it ranks as far as challenging, but there were a few spots that I had to give some long, hard thought on.
Yeah, I think this one in some ways felt a bit easier, but the injuries always make it murky, and it's always easy to say that it's, until you see the actual roster, you never know what might surprise you, and most certainly could be in store for a surprise or two come Wednesday. So let's dive on in and compare our rosters. There are some differences here, maybe more than we've had in the past. Quarterback, we have a difference here. Both have Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, of course. I have Skylar Thompson as the number 3 quarterback. You have Will Howard.
Yeah, it's kind of a gut feeling, especially you look around the NFL and some of the injuries that have happened, and the Raiders lost Aiden O'Connell to wrist injury the other night, and you look at what's going on. Who's going to be the Saints starting quarterback this year? And could they use somebody else? And when you look around the NFL, we've already seen a couple, a trade, I think, with a quarterback around the NFL, and then Carson Wentz ends up landing on the roster of the Minnesota Vikings in the last 24 hours or so, and then Will Howard. How close is he? Does this look, Skylar Thompson, I think everybody agrees, had for a preseason. It was a very strong preseason for him overall. Was it enough? Is this roster better with Skylar Thompson on it as a number 3 if they decide to keep him? I think the obvious question to that is yes. Just what is it enough, and how close is Will Howard, and does this team really want to use a quote unquote designated to return spot? They're allowed 8 for a season, and if you send a guy, you can send up to 2 guys ahead of to the final cut down to it, but they must get the designated to return status to them. And this is a guy that if your plan for the Steelers is for Skylar Thompson to essentially be your number 3 all season, and for Will Howard to essentially be on IR most of the season, I'm not sure you want to burn a designated to return status on a player like that. So this is more gut than anything. It's not like I have any more insight into it other than that. I just kind of wonder if Skylar Thompson will wind up being waived outright, or cut outright, terminated outright, or will they be able to find a team to give him a 6th-round pick, or swap one of those 6th or 7th type of situations? So I went with Will Howard sticking and Skylar ending up off the roster somehow.
It's a fair debate, and just to be clear, I have Thompson on the 53, but not necessarily beating out Howard in the sense of Howard still on this team. I have Howard on that IR to return designation using one of those two slots. So with the intention of bringing him back at some point during the season, but he's missed the entire summer. He's, to our knowledge, not back practicing, not back throwing. I think if he was, we would have heard a word about that. Mike Tomlin did not mention Will Howard and giving a general health update over the weekend. So I assume he's still working his way back. So you can certainly justify him missing the first month. Still can watch and learn and be in meetings and be around the team, and then get him back maybe mid-season and buy yourself some time. Pittsburgh likes having experienced quarterback depth top to bottom. Had that last year with Russ and Fields and Kyle Allen. And Thompson's a guy that started regular season and the playoff game, had a good summer, did basically all that you could. I know he's only third string, but you're one snap away from being one snap away. I don't know if you want to put Howard in that position, who may not be healthy right now in Pittsburgh. Almost always, I think really always keeps three quarterbacks, has that old school model. So I gave Thompson the edge, and Howard will come back at some point mid-season.
All right. And obviously, if he does go to IR, he cannot practice with the team. So it's an interesting decision. And where the good news is that we don't have that much longer to wait till we find out. But had Will Howard not gotten injured, it would have made the preseason a lot more interesting. And there would probably be really no talk about Skylar Thompson sticking with this team.
Right, but that's what the preseason gives. One injury, one man's misfortune, another man's opportunity, as Mike Tomlin says, and it certainly was true for Skylar Thompson. So we have a difference at quarterback. We have a difference at running back, and I did not expect that, even when I was about to make my initial 53. But as I kind of went through it, I thought this made more and more sense. So you keep three running backs, the three we've had on the roster the entire time: Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, and Caleb Johnson. I have the same three, but I'm keeping a fourth in running back Trey Sermon. He's had a good summer. He's well-rounded. Pittsburgh has, though rare, they have kept four running backs before on their 53 2021. Kalen Ballage was the four-string running back. Sermon, similar, but I think better than Ballage was. I think Sermon has done all that he needs to do, all that he could do to make this team.
Yeah, look, he certainly did everything in his power to take advantage of his opportunities, and that includes special teams as well too. So I understand the gut feel and on you on this, and I'm betting that he obviously gets cut. And look, this is a guy, you look around the NFL and how injuries happen. He could very well, if you do cut him, wind up on a 53-man roster elsewhere because of some of the extra things that he can do. So I just couldn't. I understand why he did it, but as I put, I just couldn't find a way with my numbers to work to accommodate him.
Yeah, I found it easier than I thought it would be in terms of keeping your best 53 guys. I thought Sermon was one of them. And I think he would dress on game day too. I think you'll need some special teams help still overall for this team. I think he's probably a better special teamer than what Cole Holcomb is offering you right now. You know, Gainwell's not going to offer it from the coverage standpoint. He'll be a return guy, a kick returner, but usually one of those running backs can be a multi-phase special teamer. Gainwell, not that guy. Johnson, not that guy. He could do kick returns. Those could be the two kick returners this year. Of course, Warren no longer doing special teams, but Sermon, I think, could be that guy for Pittsburgh.
All right, here we are, two position groups in, and we already have two differences. I don't know if we could say that we've done that many times over the years.
That is true. Tight end, we are the same here.
One of us is going to be right, and one of us is going to be wrong. That's the good thing here.
That's how the game works.
Or we both could be wrong here.
That's also true. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Tight end, we are the same. Pat Fryermuth, Johnny Smith, Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward. I'm sure some will and could argue about keeping or not having Connor Hayward on the 53 and cutting him. I know many people want to. I'm pretty confident he's going to stay.
I am as well, too. And none of those other guys, those undrafted guys that they brought in, really threaten his job. As we've said a few times in previous conversations here, most recently, unless this team goes outside and finds a fourth tight end that has more of a blocking skill set that can also function as at least a two-phase special teamer, I don't see any way that Connor Hayward doesn't stick at least one more year.
He won't play a lot offensively. Will play a lot on special teams, but can be out there in some of that 4 tight end grouping that Pittsburgh has teased throughout the summer training camp primarily. So we have alignment at tight end. We also have alignment at wide receiver, both keeping 5 in the same 5. DK Metcalf, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin III, Ben Skoranek, and Scotty Miller. Could some other addition get added through a trade or cut downs or some other avenue? Potentially, but as the initial 53 is Dave and I make it what it'll look like Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. This is what I think it'll be, Dave.
Yeah, and I think this has been our 5 for at least the last update as well. Robert Woods, just guy has no special teams value, and it's almost like a gift if you keep him. It feels like a gift to him if you keep him at this point. Might they be able to trade him for something? I kind of doubt it, but I just could not figure out a way to keep anything more than that. The big question becomes, can they trade for somebody to add to this group from the outside, I guess, or get someone from cut downs at all? Brandon Johnson, the late foot injury for him, and even though it was a good preseason overall for him, just could not make enough argument for him. I think Keyshawn Williams is an interesting story, especially from the punt return aspect, and physical guy as well too, right? In some of the blocking, I think, and I just could not find a way for him. I think he's a guy that could potentially make the practice squad for this team, and should the need arrive for some sort of punt returner, he could be an elevation and all. Be interesting to see if Brandon Johnson is at least healthy enough to get waived and not waived injured, and see how that turns out for him. But long story short, we had the same 5 here.
I know you just touched on it to a degree, but how much consideration did you give to keeping at least the 6th guy at receiver somewhere?
Just very tiny. I mean, you look at the position. If I was going to cut from any position group to accommodate a 6 wide receiver, at least the way I have this thing mapped out, it probably would have been from the defensive lineman group and gone 6 there. But you have the Derrick Harmon injury to kind of work around potentially for week 1 at this point. So that. And it sounds like Calvin Austin's making good progress to be back in week 1. So that eased my mind a little bit when it came to the wide receiver position group. And I suppose if Brandon Johnson would have stayed healthy, maybe that would have been the way that I would have went. But I didn't spend a lot of time putting those 5 together, to be honest with you.
I thought about Keyshawn Williams a little more than I expected to, just given all the punt return work that he got. But Calvin Austin seems like he's close, if not all the way back at practice, and he still has, almost 2 weeks to get ready for week 1. So his improving health and should not start on IR. They may rotate his snaps a bit more in week 1 as he gets his legs under him again, but he should be back there to be the punt returner, so I didn't see the need to put Keyshawn Williams on the 53.
All right.
All right, offensive line, and I think we have a change here. So after being the same at tight end and receiver, we do have a difference. You're keeping 9. I am keeping 9 as well, but not the same 9. We both have Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu and Dylan Cook as a backup tackle. Both have Isaac Seumalo, Mason McCormick, Spencer Anderson. Both have Zach Frazier and Ryan McCullum. The difference is in that 9th guy. You're keeping offensive tackle Calvin Anderson. I'm keeping offensive lineman, primarily a guard, Andres Pete, and putting Calvin Anderson on IR to return. Now, this was before Mike Tomlin mentioned Calvin Anderson. We put the call out for where is Calvin Anderson, and Tomlin answered it, acknowledging some sort of movement in the right direction health-wise and some sort of level of practice participation with Anderson over the weekend. How much is that? Will he avoid IR? It seems more likely he won't begin on IR, but we just don't have a lot of details on him. So if I could do it over, I may change that back. But point is, I had Anderson on IR, kept Pete, and you kept Calvin Anderson.
I mean, the big question with this group, it seems like with both of us is what's still, even though the update from Mike Tomlin the other day is how healthy is Calvin Anderson? Remember, this is a guy. Look, This is not any sort of an endorsement for Calvin Anderson. I just think this team likes Calvin Anderson maybe perhaps more than the rest of us, especially when it comes to a swing, an experienced swing tackle candidate. And I'm just betting and I wouldn't bet a lot. I'm just betting that Calvin Anderson is finally able to be healthy come week one, and that the team is willing to roll with him based on how early they signed him in the offseason and gave him a 2-year contract. Look, you could just as easily place him on IR. You could just as easily cut him outright if he is healthy, and potentially go the route that you went, I think, with Andres Pete. Andres Pete, just an interesting guy overall. Yeah, he's got the pedigree. Yeah, he's got the experience, but this is a left side only player. I really wanted to see Andres Pete at left tackle in that preseason finale, and we just didn't see it. Predominantly played left guard after the first game that he played at left tackle. I didn't think anything that he did at left tackle was notable at all. Once again, this is just boiling down to me thinking Calvin Anderson is ready to go, and if that's the case, I can see the team keeping him.
Or at least ready enough to not miss the first month of the season. Will he be ready for week one? Still probably unknown, but if they feel like he might, at worst, miss only a week or two, then you may just keep him inactive and not have to do the IR dance with him. So, he's not going to be cut. He's either going to go to IR or he'll make the team and he's healthy enough to avoid IR. So I think those are the two possibilities. And if I put Anderson on there, Pete would have been cut in my head in terms of how I was constructing this roster. So just comes down to health. Got a little more clarity after the fact, but we'll still wait and see there. Offensive line depth overall, to me, Dave, is still poor. And Anderson, healthy or not, on the 53 or not, I think they have to look for tackle help.
Yeah, I mean, look, but how many teams around the league will be doing the same thing?
About 31 of them. So, I mean, that's the
Yeah.
camp Pittsburgh's in. I have some suggestions we'll talk about a little bit later in this show, some possibilities. Already one name officially released that I think Pittsburgh can and should take a look at, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So, how many guys on offense did you keep, Dave? 24.
24, I believe.
And I went 25 with that extra running back in Trey Sermon being the difference. Defensively, let's go defensive line here. And we have a difference here as well. You're keeping 7 in Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Derrick Harmon, Y.A. Black, Isaiah Loudermilk, Daniel Kwale, and Asezi Otomewa. I am keeping 6 with Cam Hayward, Derrick Harmon, Y.A. Black, Loudermilk, Benton, and Kwale. So just keeping 6 defensive linemen. I probably buried the lead here about Derrick Harmon. We've gotten a lot of information about his injury since our last show. The official report from Ian Rappaport is a sprained MCL, missing maybe a month of action. Jerry Dulac reporting the Steelers have no plans to place Harmon on IR to begin this season, and the team believes he may only miss week 1, which, if true, would make him available and making his NFL debut for the home opener week 2 against Seattle. So overall, it has been good news on Derrick Harmon.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin even called him week to week just the other day there. So boy, how that news cycle went in a hurry, and obviously from the moment he was carted off and the look on his face and the towel over his head. I mean, this is a very good, all things considered, a very good position for the Steelers to be in. And Harmon even said too, he thinks maybe he got that knee injured into play before the interception in that game and stayed in one play longer. Then obviously took the interesting kind of tumble there while rushing the passer on that interception play. Long story short is you just don't expect him to have to go to IR, and that's good news. Will he make it by week 1? That's the big question at this point. The good news is, as of yesterday, you have 2 weeks for him to kind of heal up there. This group, why I kept 7 is obviously because of the Harmon, not knowing what's going on there. Might he have to be inactive for week 1? And if that's the case, would they still want 6 in uniform overall? I have Loudermilk making it. I think Kwale makes it. The only real question I have with this group, assuming they don't go outside the organization, would be a Seize Otomewo. I know a lot of people trying to push for Logan Lee, and I just never saw it from Logan Lee during the preseason. The whole long snapper thing is an interesting story aspect of it, but even if you kept him on the 53-man roster because of kind of insurance for the long snapper situation there, would he even be active? Because you're going to have at least 5 inactive players for week 1. You can't dress everybody. And, technically, if you were able to get Logan Lee to the practice squad and then wanted to elevate him that way, that seems like a way to do it. So I thought Otomewo outplayed Logan Lee. If you're only going to keep 6, I'm fine with that. Could understand that. But I think the first 5 or first 6, I think that both of us have here are pretty much locks. You had a Quale too, right?
I did. You think Loudermilk is a lock? Dre Dulac, for whatever it's worth, seems to cast doubt on his status and has been pushing pretty hard for Logan Lee, predicting he'll make the 53.
I certainly can't make any argument to keep Logan Lee over Loudermilk. Now, look, do I hope Loudermilk has to play a lot of snaps? No, but I mean, I'd much rather have Loudermilk out there than I would Logan Lee.
Now, Harmon seems almost certain to miss week 1. I think the question's going to be just which week in between can he get back? Week 2, week 3, week 4 is probably the range I'll put it at. So I admit, I'm only carrying 6, and Harmon is going to miss the opener. So you're pretty light there with 5, but I think you have stronger depth than years past. Black has looked really good. Quale can play up and down the line. Black may get some nose tackle work. Terrell Austin hinting at that at least. And Loudermilk is known, and as you said, you could always elevate too. So you could bring up a Logan Lee the day before the Jets game and have him dress. You have those elevations, those 2 that you get for each week. Lee was my number 54 player too. So you're right. He did not have a really strong summer. I thought there was some improvement in progression. The long snapper thing, as you said, is notable, but and I think he would probably dress if he were to, of course, be elevated, but even if he made the 53, because Harmon's going to be inactive for week 1. But it's just not the odds of that happening are not 0, as we just saw in the preseason, but the odds of needing your backup long snapper are pretty slim overall. So, yeah, I know I'm light here, defensive line. I may come back and kick myself. Lee was close, but I just didn't feel like he was one of the best 53 guys to keep.
Did you have Logan Lee as a better player than Otomewo for the preseason?
I don't know if I had an official grade in my head in terms of who was better in preseason action. They're a little different players overall in terms of how they win. Otome was a better athlete, would be a better pass rusher. Thought Lee was better against some of these zone scheme runs where he can flow down the line. Thought his hand use improved. Who was better 1-to-1? I'd have to really sit down and study, but probably I can certainly see why you gave Otomewa the nod. The question is, will he make the 53? Would this team consider adding an outsider defensive lineman? I know this is the initial 53, but putting that exercise aside and just talking brass tacks, would they go add some veteran to get them through until Harmon comes back?
Wasn't there word yesterday that Phillips potentially going back to the Bills? Is that the same Phillips that the Steelers tried to claim off waivers a couple of times?
Jordan Phillips? That was a long time ago, I think, that claim, right? But he's going to Buffalo. Yeah, he's signing their 53.
But, I mean, they have had interest in him in the past, though, right? If that's the same one I'm thinking of.
It looks like 2018. Yeah, that was a waiver claim. But he's already, I think, delivered, signed, sealed in Buffalo.
Right.
So we'll see.
They obviously could watch this thing, but I mean, how many of those guys fit what they look for that you could get up and running and get in uniform for week 1 and those kind of things?
Is there any ex-Steelers defensive lineman who could circle back? I'm just spitballing, musing. I'm wondering somebody who might be familiar with the system, because you're right. By the time that guy gets ready, Harmon could be back, and then that spot becomes moot for any new addition. But I know I'm light here, and they have been keeping. They kept 8 last year on the initial 53, partly because Lee was going to IR. They've kept 7 in years past. So maybe I'm too light, but I just didn't see Lee or anyone else stick out to make that initial 53. Could that change later on? Could you elevate? You certainly could. You probably would in this scenario if I was correct. But That's what I came up with.
All right.
Edge rushers, not much discussion to be had here. These have been the four, start to finish. Watt, Highsmith, Herbig, and Sawyer. Leota's had a good summer. We both think practice squad material there. Both think it's probably end of the line for DeMarvin Leal, but these four are locks.
I guess the question comes in, could you keep Leal as a quasi, keep six defensive linemen, and then, but I mean, Leal really doesn't give you much other than just an additional edge rusher guy. I mean, so I didn't spend a lot of time considering Leal making this 53.
Same. I just think you have to, end that journey. It just hasn't worked out. There's some intriguing athletic traits with him, but the scheme fit has never meshed well. Again, I do like referenced Leal maybe being kept around, but in reference to the defensive line, and Leal has played outside linebacker for all but about 2 snaps when he got some D-line work when lines got thin in training camp during one practice. So I think it's end of the road for DeMarvin Leal.
I mean, he might have some value around the league. What if this Trey Hendrickson thing with the Bengals rolls into the regular season here? Might that be a team that uses him as a situational pass rusher?
Yeah, I think he'll end up somewhere given another chance. What he does with that and how good of a chance that is, I don't know. But I think 4-3 end is where he should go. And the Bengals run a 4-3 defense that probably could use some help at defensive end.
All right, inside linebacker.
We have a change here, too. Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb, Malik Harrison make both of our initial rosters. The difference is on that number 5 spot. I still kept Mark Robinson. You went Carson Bruner, which felt like a last-second change there. So why Bruner over Robinson, Dave?
Oh, I thought you went Bruner too, didn't you?
Nope, I had Mark Robinson. It's close. I think Bruner is close to the gap, but I did not make the change.
All right, you sold me enough on him the other day. I went back and watched some of the stuff on him, and I ended up flipping because you sent me back down to watch the tape again. And I think you asked me originally, did I think that Bruner closed the gap enough? And I said initially no, and went back and kind of concentrated on him. And look, his last name's Bruner. He was a draft pick. You obviously try to keep as many draft picks as feasibly possible if they're deserving enough. Obviously, I think Mark Robinson, pound for pound, is you'd probably be a little bit more competent with him out there on defense than you would Bruner, but this team's got a good group of inside linebackers. Bruner, why not go younger? Why not go with potential a little bit more upside overall? When it comes to 1-for-1, Mark Robinson is what he is at this point. Yeah, he delivers. Here's his calling card. He can jar that football loose on special teams. So if they end up keeping Robinson over Bruner, it's probably because this is a guy that can get the ball out of the opposition's hands on special teams.
And just a little more known, a little more veteran, and you can put Bruner on the practice squad, I think. But yeah, I mean, some of the numbers on Bruner are really intriguing. He had 64 special teams snaps that led the entire team. He had 5 tackles on special teams, 3 solo. His 15 total tackles for the entire preseason led Pittsburgh. Of course, tackles are not the end-all, be-all, but just active around the ball and a special teams demon, just like he was at Washington. So the more I thought about it, the more I think he could be right here, Dave. It's close. They're very similar guys. Obviously, Bruner, the younger, 4-year contract, the draft pick, but I still gave Robinson the edge because he's been there, done that, and Pittsburgh knows all about what he can do, and he's been an effective special teamer throughout his career as well. So really close. I thought Bruner had a nice end of the summer.
All right.
All right, at cornerback, and we are the same here with 6 being kept: Ramsey, Porter, Slay, Eccles, Pierre, and Bishop. So despite Bishop not playing in the finale, and we'd later found out that it was a minor injury with Beanie Bishop, which is what we suspected. There was no way he was just being held out for good graces or anything like that in that finale against Carolina. Mike Tomlin calling him day-to-day. We still both think Bishop makes it. So, Dave, why did you keep Beanie Bishop?
Oh, just the experience, and I am worried a little bit about him not playing the other day, but at least it finally came out that We know why. He was a little bit dinged up, looked all over for him for the sideline. I don't know if I ever saw him on the sideline the other night. He had to be in street clothes and just couldn't pick him up. The whole Corey Trice thing, and I think Daryl Porter Jr. Made a case in there. Look, I am very unconfident about the last spot within this group for sure.
Are you more confident in Pierre making this team than Bishop?
Yeah, just because of the special teams aspect with Pierre. And look, Pierre, Mike Tomlin talks about making plays, and even though it was a kind of a gimme interception, you got to make those, and he did. And I just think that Danny Smith has his two gunners carved out in Ben Skoranek and James Pierre. So, and at least James Pierre does have experience playing out there at corner. So unless I just don't know who else would really give you that good other gunner aspect if you did not have James Pierre. I went back and looked through all the people that played there, and maybe it comes from the outside. I don't know, but mainly James Pierre being kept for special teams.
In a world where Pierre wasn't a gunner, Bishop, maybe Roman Wilson and Scotty Miller were picking up reps there in the finale, but I don't think either are ideal there. Miller actually did a nice job in that Falcons game last season in emergency work, but yeah, I think Pierre more confident than Bishop. I still think Bishop makes it. He was my 53rd guy. I did a bracketology, last five in, first five out kind of a deal, and Bishop was 53 because I don't see a defensive role for him right now. But you just want to be deep at corner. Pittsburgh has talked about the need to really improve their cornerback depth and be really strong there. So why shed a young guy, even though I don't see any sort of role, and he's probably going to be inactive should he make this roster for week one and maybe beyond.
Okay.
And then at safety, chalk here and Elliott, Thornhill, Chuck Clark, and Miles Killebrew. I talked about earlier, I think Castro goes to the practice squad, but these should be the four. Is Clark 100%? Could they look for an upgrade over Chuck Clark at some point, maybe even if he makes the initial 53?
It never say never, right? But it feels like from the moment that he got added, especially after the first preseason game, that he's going to be on this team. He's a great communicator, and man, if you ever got in a situation where he had to be on the field a lot, I mean, because of his ability to communicate and his position flexibility, if you will, at both safety spots, I think they value that.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's some intangible things, the experience, the versatility that Clark brings that probably makes him the backup, but don't want to see him have to play a ton of snaps this year.
Uh-huh.
And who do you think's the dime guy of this construction of the 10 DBs we're keeping? Who's that 6 DB in dime packages for if and when they're used?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah,
I think it's Eccles.
Yeah,
Pretty
potential because
clearly.
they did move him around, and yeah, Mike Tomlin talked kind of really positive about him as well too. So did Terrell Austin. So yeah, that probably makes a sense with at least the six that I have here.
All right, special teams, and it's not just, a short conversation here. It is a kicker. Chris Boswell, Christian Kuntz should make the initial 53, should avoid IR. Will they have to elevate? We'll see, but it should be Kuntz after McQuaid's release. Punter is the big discussion, and one of the biggest decisions to watch from Pittsburgh. We end up aligned here, Dave, both keeping Corliss Waitman over Cameron Johnston. It's razor thin right now, but why did you give Waitman the nod?
Better hang time. I think he's probably got pound for pound the stronger leg. He held for Chris Boswell all last season. He's a left-footed kicker, as you brought up a couple of times in the last several weeks and all like that. Got that ball spinning different. Hard for teams to kind of prepare for that, if you will. Bill Belichick was a big fan of the left-footed kicker. You do have a little bit of concern, maybe still a little bit with Johnston coming off of that injury, even though it happened in the first game last year. This could go either way. This really could go either way. I just thought maybe with Waitman and what he put on tape last year was good enough for this team, and the whole left-footed kicker thing or punter thing, and he showed that he could hold, and Boswell trained him. And why would you want to mess with that part of the battery, if you will?
Yeah, that's a fair point. And you made a really good point. I forgot to consider what the hang times were from PFF, and they do chart hang times. And wow, there was a big difference there. Waitman 4.84 and Johnston 4.20. Now, I know Johnston or Waitman, excuse me, had some more open grass situations, but hang time is hang time. I think really regardless of where you're punting from. Maybe if you're backed up in your own end zone, hang time matters a little bit less because the operation's trying to get off a little bit quicker. But whatever it's worth, PFF certainly giving Waitman the big nod over Johnston in hang time and in their grading of punters.
Yep, yep. This is one of those things that we've been position that probably one of the more intriguing ones. Look, I think potentially there's an opportunity here to trade once again, whichever one of these guys don't make it to a team. And Johnston, obviously is a vet, and some teams will value that. It's not like he had an awful preseason because, as you said, this was a razor thin competition. So could they maybe flip him for a seventh or a sixth or something like that?
You certainly try. The other question will be for the initial 53, as we saw 2 years ago, could both be kept initially? I mean, I think Pittsburgh, as we talked about, probably shouldn't go down that road. If you can't trade the guy before 4 p.m., you probably won't trade him after, but that's also still a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely it is. It would take some moving around with maybe some other position groups here, but I'm just bet that they don't. Look, this is a team, and I brought this back up this morning on my Twitter timeline. This is a team that was able to deal Kendrick Green a couple of off seasons ago, and uh, not many people saw that coming. So when you talk about them maybe trading away a Skylar Thompson, potentially maybe one of these punters, we've seen them trade a punter before. Brad Wing a couple of years ago, obviously traded uh, Kevin. It was the offensive lineman.
Dotson?
Dotson a few off seasons ago, or few summers ago. Uh, this team's going to trade somebody, I think.
Oh, you think you're calling that someone will get
Yeah,
traded tomorrow?
they're going to trade somebody by the time I think by the time maybe even more than one by the time
Wow.
4 o'clock
Right.
Eastern rolls around.
If I told you they only traded one name, but one name was traded, who would you guess that would be?
I would guess it would probably be Cameron Johnston.
Over Skylar Thompson.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think if somebody gets traded, yeah, I think they keep Thompson. I still think, can you get Leal conditional seventh from somebody somewhere? I'm still gonna ride that train all the way through. Um, what was the hardest decision you had to make on your initial 53? Who was number 53, or what was kind of your toughest debate?
Well, like Chuck Noll said, the problem isn't cutting, it's stopping. Uh, I'm not very confident in Asazio Tomewo. I'll tell you that.
Hmm.
But I could not. I from what the tape showed, I couldn't put Logan Lee on there. So I would just say maybe going a different direction and keeping 6 defensive linemen. Obviously the punter decision was a tough one.
Right.
And then not knowing I mean, I don't know how I would rank these, Alex, to be honest with you, because there's just once again, there's so many of them that are injury kind of related here that you just don't know. The whole Will Howard thing, the Calvin Anderson thing. I mentioned 6 or 7 defensive linemen. Was an interesting decision. How safe is safe for Beanie Bishop?
Right.
Uh, and
He's certainly
then
not safe.
yeah, and then the punter thing. So I there were a lot of minor things, some injury related. I don't want to. Who would be my 54th? I guess would be
I was just gonna ask
best
you.
the best question. Who would have I added on if I could have? I guess I'd need to look back down at my practice squad then. Ah, man.
Would it be
I don't
another
know. Yeah,
lineman?
you make a great argument for Trey Sermon. Uh, I don't know if it'd be a lineman there. I know Pete could wind up on the 53, but I just think he's a left side guy, guard capable.
Is Castro too crazy of a sleeper
No,
suggestion?
I mean, look, they moved him around a lot. He certainly didn't hurt himself at all, and he played a lot of snaps, and he can help you on special teams. I don't think that's crazy. I would probably say it would be a tie between Sermon and Castro as
Okay.
potentially guys that if I was allowed one more roster spot, it'd be one of those two guys, I think.
Would you have given any consideration to keeping Skylar Thompson as a fourth quarterback if I gave you a 54th spot to play with?
No, not really, because I mean,
No.
you hope not to get down that deep anyway. I mean, I know it
Well,
happens.
you hope not to, but yeah,
Right,
it happens.
right.
Jerry Dulac's been very adamant that Howard is going to go to IR and Thompson will be kept. Now, of course, things can change, and one phone call from Pete Carroll can create a trade. And Carroll's
Mhm.
already openly saying, "We are in the quarterback market. We need a backup." They need a backup. O'Connell's out at least the first month of the season. They got a 6th-round rookie as their number 2 behind Geno Smith. They're going to add a veteran. It's just a question of who and how.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to add somebody. Just who will it be?
For me, my 54th, like I said, was Logan Lee. I'm still wrestling a little bit with that Bruner Robinson debate. Am I going to get Caleb Johnson if they keep Mark Robinson? And you're going to sit there and say, I shouldn't have listened to old Alex and kept Carson Bruner. I don't know which way this thing's going to go.
Say again.
If they keep Robinson over Bruner, because you were saying that I convinced you on Bruner, am I going to get Caleb Johnson remember from your mock draft? You were saying
Oh.
that I turned you away from Caleb Johnson.
No, I think this is just an admission that you got to go through the tape all the way through the whole preseason. I obviously, because Carson Bruner was a draft pick and all, look, I mean, we both value special teams. We talk a lot. Some people say that we talk too much about it when it comes to keeping some of these guys in the 53-man roster and all. Carson Bruner, I mean, he played a lot of special teams throughout his college career and all. Just what is Mark Robinson is what Mark Robinson is now, and he's never going to be more than that. Could Carson Bruner end up? Look, how many more years too are you going to get out of a Miles Killebrew? And could Carson Bruner potentially become that kind of guy? So, I'm not worried about him getting claimed or anything like that. Talking about Carson Bruner, uh, I, I just when you look at it in totality, to go with the younger player, especially if you know the guy that he's potentially replacing, maybe being in his last season, and he's basically a one-trick pony. So that's why when I went back and looked at it in totality, why not keep Carson Bruner over Mark Robinson?
Yeah, that's fair. I do think it's still for Pittsburgh, as cliche as it sounds, it's about keeping the best 53. And I go back to that reference. I think I cited it on here before about when they drafted Colin Holba, the long snapper in the 6th round. You thought, well, 6th-round pick on a long snapper. Of course he's going to make the team. And he ended up losing that job. And that's a situation where it would have been, it's a hard decision to make because you're cutting that guy, you're losing him, never comes back to your organization. But they kept the best guy. Now, Bruner, you could argue, is the best guy, but that long-term outlook may matter a little bit less in the team's decision-making.
Look, this might be the furthest off that we've been in a
Yeah.
53-man roster prediction. I don't, all
How
of
many
them
differences do we have?
I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, I'm keeping Will Howard. That's different from you because you have him going to IR.
I think we have 5 differences.
Yeah, you have him keeping Sermon. I have him keeping Calvin Anderson. You have him keeping Pete. I have him keeping Otomewo. You have him one less, keeping just 6. I have him keeping Carson Bruner. You have him keeping Mark Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, that for a 53-man roster, we're about 46 spots are pretty much locked in. That's a
Right.
lot of change between you and I.
Yeah, I think, once again, I don't, this isn't scientific, but this might be the furthest off that we've been with each other for a final 53-man roster since you've been doing them on the site and all.
But by the way, who was your projected IR to return player or players if any?
I think Corey Trice Jr. I
Okay.
just don't know. I mean, I know he's back working on the side. I think he said the other day that he thinks he's going to be ready for week 1, but I mean, he hasn't played at all during the preseason, and you worry about the conditioning. How long will it take him for the conditioning aspect once he gets going full bore? So I think I have him as my lone designated to return guy.
For me, it was Calvin Anderson and Will Howard. I cut Corey Trice, put him back on the practice squad. I think he's close enough to start working, and he's just got to work. He's got to practice. He can't keep getting shelved and IR for a third season. Missed the first month, essentially not practice in full for 2 months. Got hurt on August 1st. If you want this guy to work and reach any potential that he has, and he certainly has potential, then he's got to practice. So I put him on the practice squad. What other notable names are on your practice squad, Dave? Go rattle off some of the more interesting inclusions on that 17-man group.
I mean, Trey Sermon, assuming he makes it all the way, and look, some team could very well value him as their number 3 running back. Mark Robinson, I have going to the practice squad. Andres Pete, I know there's the need for offensive linemen around the league, but I just a gut feeling that maybe he returns. Wasn't Pete even on a practice squad last year?
There's the veteran exception. I don't know that for a fact, but probably.
Max Sharping. I mean, you could always use those guard center types, and he spent time on practice squad last year. Let's see, other notables. I think that's
Should
the
Sharping
notable
get
ones.
more consideration? I mean, he ran all summer. He was healthy, backup center. A lot of it with McCollum dinged. He's a vet. They had him on the roster last year.
The only thing I'll say about that is McCollum looked rusty as hell the other night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 penalties. He's healthy, so he's gonna be ready he's gonna be on the roster in week 1, you would think. But what conditioning and what's his status is notable. So should Sharping get a little more love? I think he was my number. What was he? 55, number 55 on my roster.
All right, but you have Sharping on your practice squad, I imagine, right?
I do. My offensive linemen are Max Sharping and Steven Jones. I think they're going to look for some outside help, but those are the 2. Who are your offensive linemen? You kept Sharping and Pete, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Dante Kent, the other draft pick, both have him going to the practice squad. He's getting healthy, but just too much missed time, so go to the Pete squad.
I have Jake McQuaid just out of, I'm living in my fears.
I have McQuaid too. I mean, it makes sense.
Okay.
Just keep him around, just and elevate. And if you don't need him week 1, then cut him and open up the spot somewhere else. But I think you want to just in case Kuntz is not good for week 1, you want to have a backup plan. Although McQuaid didn't snap particularly well in that game. That first snap that he had to Johnston was pretty high. So Logan Lee.
Yeah, I noted that the other day, didn't I?
I think you did. So yeah, I know it's his first game. He's a vet, but just some insurance is smart there for McQuaid. And we're keeping 17 because Welshoff is the international exemption, so you get a 17th spot if you keep him around.
I feel pretty good about nailing Welshoff to the practice squad.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Dave, this will be interesting. Cut downs. It's going to be a lot of questions that will be answered.
Right, and look, here's I think will we see any kind of we brought this up before about Scotty Miller and all, and I think there's actually a couple of players. It ends up that Andres Pete also has a roster bonus in his contract for making the 53. You've got three players that kind of fit the same status, if you will, that Scotty Miller that we talked about the other day. All 3 have, I think, 53-man roster bonuses that you could potentially work around. Chuck Clark, Andres Pete, Scotty Miller.
Does James Pierre have a roster bonus too? Does he get a signing bonus and a roster bonus?
They gave him, I think, a $50,000 signing bonus, and I think he's got a $75,000 53-man roster bonus.
So I would include him as a potential yo-yo if you needed that. I don't think they're going to need to yo-yo somebody because you have those 2 spots. Unless you just didn't want to declare, like if you didn't want to declare Howard designated to return off the rip, because the rule is if you put him at cutdowns tomorrow, if a guy goes to IR, he's designated to return. It's one of those 2 spots. He has to take up one of those 8 return spots. If you do it after, you don't have to declare after tomorrow's cutdowns. You can put a guy on IR, And then once you decide to open his window, then he becomes one of your 8. But until then, he does not count. You can pick and choose. So you would think Howard would come back, but point is you have a little flexibility after the fact. So, but I think they're still going to use an IR to return spot on Howard, because what would you rather do? Keep 4 quarterbacks if you're keeping Thompson, which I think they will, or burn up one of those 8 IR to return spots? I think it's more valuable to it'd be more valuable to use the 53 spot than the IR to return spot.
So you're saying it's plausible that they could keep 4 and then turn around and put Howard? Because that's what I threw out on Twitter, just as I want to make sure we have something to go back to and say, well, this is potentially why they did it. So you're saying it's plausible they keep 4 and then move Howard to IR?
It's possible, but your point was, why burn up the IR to return spot on Howard on a quarterback, right? That was your kind of point of contention. And I think it's more valuable. It'd be more of a quote unquote waste to keep 4 quarterbacks and have to cut somebody on the 53 than burn up one of those IR to return spots.
Well, I guess it depends on how confident you are you could get your 54th guy back.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it's a yo-yo guy, then that would make some sense. But I just think Howard's going to go on IR to return. I mean, they didn't even use all 8 last year. They were opening up everybody's windows late last season.
You can come out of but you never know how that stuff can go. You can come out of week 1 with 3 guys banged up, and
But again, you don't have to declare those guys once they go on IR after tomorrow.
Sure.
So you have flexibility. It's not like you put a guy on IR after week 1 and he automatically takes up one of your 8 spots.
18 weeks is a long time, though.
All right, that's fair. So I still don't know if the yo-yo will be needed, but if it is, then I think those are who is the most likely yo-yo candidate. I don't know if it'll be Scotty Miller. I think he certainly fits, and you made a good case for it, but I don't know if would they go with Pete? Would they go with Pierre?
Do you really want to risk a great gunner, in James Pierre? Looking at it now, and it depends on potentially Calvin Anderson's health, I would guess. But I don't know. Maybe Pete is the more logical guy because he's a left side guy only.
The risk is minimal because he's not going to get claimed. That's the whole yo-yo.
You probably have a better relationship, though, with Scotty Miller, though. And Scotty Miller probably doesn't want to have to go restart again. And money speaks all. But is there if you terminated the contract of Scotty Miller with the handshake agreements are just that, assuming you don't get a better offer out there, is there a team out there that might value Scotty Miller at at more than what the Steelers are willing to pay him if he was to be out on the street for 24 hours?
Yeah, and somebody brought that up to me yesterday, and I kind of dismissed it, but I do get the thought. If you had to make that yo-yo decision, because Miller popped. I mean, he made some plays inside stadiums. He was making some big plays. One of those could have what if Carolina trades Adam Thielen and Minnesota's in talks with them and they say, let's go get Scotty Miller because we like what he's done this year. So Miller also made the 53 last year, even though they needed was there a yo-yo guy last year? Because Logan Lee got kept, but he was carried for like a week and then they finally put him on IR. So I don't know if that's a true yo-yo situation last year.
Well, he went off. Who came back?
Yeah, I don't know who came back, but it wasn't an immediate thing. It wasn't like Lee went on IR. I don't think the day after cutdowns. He was kept for a little bit and then put on IR. I don't know who took his place, though.
Oh, let's look back here. When was the cut downs?
It was August 27th. It was late August last year. It's always recently late August.
Trying to remember if there's anybody that came back on.
I mean, somebody came back on whenever Lee got put on IR.
I'm not. What?
It looks like no, because the move per the team was Lee to IR. They elevated Skoranek. I don't know if that was a signing, though, or an elevation. Maybe that was Skoranek getting signed to the 53.
I'll have to pull up the week 153, I guess.
Okay. But anyway, we'll see if anyone... The yo-yo's less of a talking point than it was before this rule change. It lets you put 2 guys right there tomorrow, but we'll see. There are some candidates if that is needed.
Did that Elliott did the other Elliott?
Jalen Elliott?
Yeah, did Jalen Elliott. He was on but he wasn't active for a game.
Right. He made the initial 53. He was
He
active.
did?
He made the initial 50. Yes. He was inactive week 1 and then got released pretty quick.
Did Rush make the 53? Darius Rush?
I think he did. I remember that was a trivia question we had last year, right?
Okay.
I'll double check the initial 53.
All right. I don't want to spend a lot of time going back through this, but I mean, just throwing out the idea that if it'll be easy to explain after the fact if we see it happen,
Right. So just
whether it
keep
be for
that in
4
mind.
quarterbacks or whatever.
Yes, Rush made the initial 53. There was 5 corners: Porter, Jackson, Trice, Rush, Beanie, and then 5 safeties of Fitzpatrick, Elliott, Casey, Killebrew, and Jalen Elliott made that initial 53.
All right.
All right, Dave, where to from here? From a general health standpoint, we've already kind of discussed it, going through these position groups. Mike Tomlin speaking to the media, noting Calvin Austin continues to work his way back. Trice getting some work in. He talked to the media. Derrick Harmon hopefully will avoid IR. Tomlin calling him week to week. Dante Kent, Calvin Anderson working their way back. The only guy that I believe that we've not heard anything about him practicing, really there's 2, but one notable one. Of course, Will Howard. Haven't heard anything about progression with him. And then Aiden Williams, the offensive lineman, he may go to IR tomorrow. He's not, I don't think, practiced since the last day of training camp.
Was he the concussion protocol guy or no?
No, that was Gareth Warren.
Okay, Warren.
I don't know what happened to Aiden Williams. I'm not even sure. He's been out for so long, but they've not IR'd him, so I'm not sure why they haven't done anything with him yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be a 53-man guy. It's just how they
fix that glitch.
Yeah, how they tab him on a transaction sheet.
Yeah. So guys can go to IR tomorrow without the designation to return, correct? It just knocks them out for the entire season.
Right.
So you may see that. Maybe Brandon Johnson.
With a guy like him, though, you'd probably just waive him injured, though.
Okay. Well, functionally, it's the same thing, right? He clears waivers, he goes to IR the next day. Dave, what position should Pittsburgh consider post cutdowns once the dust settles and you have your free agents from the vested guys, you have your waiver claims? Where should Pittsburgh be looking, and who, if anyone, should Pittsburgh be looking at?
I mean, you've got some better answers to that. I think offensive line is a position that we talked about a lot, and tackle within that is one position group, and then there's the wide receiver position. Whether or not this team tries to go get one of those number 2/number 3 type guys to try to add really a 6 to that group. So why don't you go over? I think you really addressed just the tackle position, right?
Yeah, I think tackle certainly, even if Calvin Anderson is healthy enough to avoid IR, what's his status for week 1? We both have Dylan Cook making the 53, but would you be shocked if Dylan Cook was cut? Like, has he really earned that 53-man spot?
It's more of the last guy standing that's got the position flexibility with him. So no, I would not bet my house that Cook is on this 53 come Tuesday or even week 1.
Right. So all of that to say Pittsburgh looking pretty weak at tackle. I think they have to explore it, really add somebody. The pool is never going to be good. You're never going to have that ace tackle just sitting there available. But here's some names to consider. Jackson Barton, the Cleveland Browns. I wrote about this before his release in anticipation of him being released, and he has been cut by Cleveland. He's not played a ton of football in his career, but he played about 160 snaps last year for Arizona, can play left and right side, has some size. Carter Warren of the Jets, Pitt, went to Pitt for his college ball. He's not had a great career. New regime may get squeezed out there. Potentially even a trade candidate. There's been some rumors about maybe him getting shopped before cut downs. They've drafted those first-round tackles in Fashanu and Membo, and so Warren may be on the outs there. Joshua Azudu from the Giants. He's a tackle guard, little undersized, that Fautanu build, 6'4", but long. He's played a lot of guard. He's played some left tackle, though, this preseason. 5th-round rookie Marcus Bowe for the Giants has been playing well. Azudu could get squeezed out there. And then not a vet, this would be a waiver claim, I believe. Kadeem Telford of the Packers is a guy who's played only a little bit in the NFL in terms of regular season experience, but he's got size, he's got length, and he's played left and right tackle, and he may get squeezed out because Green Bay feels pretty deep at offensive tackle. Some other names to consider as well. Asim Richards from Dallas is like Azudu, undersized, tackle, guard. It seems like he could certainly get cut back down there in Dallas.
All right, I'll put you on the spot here. Who of the guys that you listed would you most likely want? And then who would be the most likeliest?
It's such a dart throw. I hadn't gone through the tape. I've looked at a little bit of the grades and just kind of the resumes of these guys. Most likely to happen, maybe a Jackson Barton. He's a vet. But Warren. I mean, they all kind of blend together. It's hard to really give a name. I think they're all kind of swimming in the same end of the pool.
And if I was to still hammer you on wide receiver, it would be Alec Pierce, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are other names to consider. I know I'm probably too focused on Alec Pierce. I get stuck in my ways of just go get this guy and put blinders on. Raheem Jarrett of the Buccaneers just got cut. How about a trade? Now, Pierce is not a cut candidate. He'd be a trade candidate. Parker Washington, I mentioned before, as a potential trade candidate, kind of buried over there in Jacksonville. New regime, number 4 receiver type. Could you trade for him as a slot type of receiver, a little bigger, bulkier type of a guy? Any other names at receiver to mention, Dave?
I was going through the green. If they, I imagine Christian Watson's going to start on IR for the Packers.
It seems so.
They've got quite a selection of wide receivers over there. Could a guy like Dontavian Wicks be of any interest?
Maybe. I mean, they're pretty deep at receiver, even with
Malik
some of those
Heath
injuries.
is another guy
from Virginia. I don't know much about Malik Heath. I don't know. Has he played a lot of football? I mean, what kind of receiver do they want before you even kind of get
They need
the
somebody
names?
that can stretch the field. Period. They need
Okay.
maybe a bigger field stretcher.
Right. So that's where I think Pierce fits. Wicks may fit that. I'd have to kind of watch him a little bit more. Parker Washington really wouldn't be that guy, but I think there's some slot value. He also can return punts, even though Austin can fulfill that role in Pittsburgh. I mean, I'd watch Tampa Bay, Trey Palmer. Like I said, Jarrett got cut. There was some depth there, even though they had some injuries to McMillan that kind of changed their plans, and Godwin's still working his way back from health, too.
Is there anybody that's got connections to Aaron Rodgers?
Alan Lazard and Dubs. I mean, those are the two that have been talked about quite a bit.
It certainly sounds like Matt LaFleur has no qualms about Dubs is going to be on that roster.
Of course, if you were going to move him, why would you say he's available? Right. You'd say we're keeping him, and if you're going to come at us, come correct with a good offer.
Well, I mean, they draft Savion Williams over there, and they're going to get Christian Watson back at some point. They've got Golden. Yeah, we'll see. It's hard to come up and look. A lot of teams potentially going to be looking for an extra receiver too.
Yeah, saw a lot of trades, so we've already seen a lot of teams pick up receivers, and some teams. Do you have any interest in any of the receivers that were dealt? Sky Moore, John Mechie? Do you think Pittsburgh missed any boats there?
Nah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Any other positions they could address? Defensive line, could that be a last-second position the pro scouts look at? Yeah,
I mean, there's a chance. I mean, especially when I have a guy like Otomewo still sticking around. Yeah, I think you could definitely look, and it wouldn't be a shock, I guess.
And I say that flippantly. The pro scouts have been looking at these guys, of course, throughout the entire preseason. You don't just start that when Harmon gets hurt. Do we have time? Is it bad podcast and usual to look at some names and try to, consider any guys who might fit? I
mean, I guess we could. I mean, I don't know. I haven't studied enough who might be on roster bubbles of other teams.
Yeah, I'm not just trying to see if anyone kind of just jumps out off the page to me right now and just kind of rolling through nothing immediately. I'm sure if we really went through this thing.
Kansas City just didn't they trade for to bring back, and who might be out as a result of that? I'm not seeing anybody jumping off here.
What if Mazi Smith was cut in Dallas? There's some rumors that he's a bubble guy down there, former first-round pick, big kid out of Michigan.
Man, they already ready to give up on him.
Yeah, it sounds like he is a true bubble guy. So this thing's gone sideways really, really quick.
Well, they like
pedigree.
Mike Tomlin likes those Michigan guys, and and the team likes pedigree, so that might not be a bad one. But I mean, if he were to be waived, somebody's going to jump in there.
That's also probably true. That's a fair point because he will be subject to waivers.
I'm not having
anyone else
anybody
sticking out to you?
Yeah, I'm not having anybody jump out at me.
Carl Brooks in Green Bay. I don't know if he's making the 53. He might, but I know didn't Dunbar work him out?
Yeah. Dunbar worked him out at that pro day. Yeah.
He's active. He's a good athlete. So anyway, yeah, I'm spending too much time on it, but just a couple names that pop to me.
All right, Mike Hilton getting turned loose by Miami.
Yeah, he was cut. Sounds like he didn't get much of a chance. Was running with the backups, and so I don't think Pittsburgh will have interest. I think they're pretty set at slot corner, especially if a guy like Bishop's on the bubble.
All right, shall we do some emails here?
Do the Browns keep 4 quarterbacks by Wednesday?
They shouldn't, but they will.
All right. What do you make of all this Shador stuff? Everyone's like, the Browns fans are losing their minds. Oh my God, they're sabotaging Shador. They're not calling. They're calling bad plays for him. They're not blocking for him.
Yeah, I think that's just a fan base caught up in everybody wants the young quarterback to hit kind of thing. I mean, there were some ugly. Look, I understand late in a preseason game and not having top linemen out there and all like that, but he's doing the same thing that he did in college. He's running away from the pocket. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's taking some bad sacks. I mean, yeah, the offensive line I'm sure hasn't been great. Welcome to the end of the preseason. The offensive line is great in that situation, but some old habits are popping back up for Shador Sanders. All right, Dave. Yeah, let's get some emails and close out today's show.
All right, Mike Shorter here. Do you think we saw more passing to the middle of the field this summer in training camp and games? Also, can you recap Jonnu Smith's participation this summer? My sense is he hardly practiced and he didn't play any games. So those are, I mean, look, they did kind of address the middle of the field a little bit during the games in a lot of their kind of vanilla play calling. It was good to see them hit so many guys over the middle of the field there. What about in training camp though, with the middle of the field? And then how can you recap Jonnu Smith's training camp participation?
The eyeball test says yes, there was more of that. Metcalf's biggest plays did not come down the sideline. They were, crossing routes, deep crossers over the middle of the field. There were a ton of slants thrown his way. I mean, I'm working on a study about the number of slants Pittsburgh has thrown, how few there's been, and why I think that's going to change this year. So, yeah, I think you'll certainly see a more well-rounded and balanced offensive attack, even though I think Russ threw to the middle of the field more than he was given credit for. Calvin Austin made a bunch of plays over the middle last year, but I think we'll see more of that this year with Rodgers.
All right. What about Jonnu Smith and what he did this summer?
It was on and off. He's got a knee. I think he's battled, but he's a guy that probably will not be playing all 17 games. I'm going to assume he's going to miss a little bit of time this year just as he gets older and kind of battles some stuff. He's athletic. He's physical and probably puts himself in harm's way a little bit, but I mean, he should be good for week 1.
All right, this one from Caleb Zaborski again. Good morning. With the Harmon injury, who do you see stepping into that role, and how much of a hole does that leave until Harmon returns? Also, why does Boswell not get the credit he deserves around the league? He has easily been the most consistent kicker in the past 5 years. He doesn't have the biggest leg, but he is the most reliable kicker in the game. I don't know. I think Boswell's been getting a lot of credit overall. I mean, heck, he with the awards and all last year, postseason awards and all. And yeah, I think he does have a strong leg. I mean, is he a guy that's going to go out there and nail one from 70? I mean, he could, I guess, right? But you don't put kickers in a lot of those situations there. I think Boswell's been getting enough credit the last few years. Do you?
Well, the first team All Pro beating out Aubrey last year, I think indicates
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
the postseason awards.
Yeah, and strong legs have become relative because now strong legs, like if you can't kick a 55-yarder, your leg is now considered weak. 10 years ago that was kind of the max, and so now we're hitting, Cam Little hitting 70 yards, and I think hit Aubrey. Somebody hit a 64-yarder in the preseason this year. So Boswell's leg is probably just average in the sense of where the NFL bar is at right now. The reason why Boswell previously didn't get that love was because he was in the same division as Justin Tucker, with at the time the NFL's greatest kicker at that point in time and one of the best historically ever. So you're just simply getting overshadowed by the guy that's in your division.
Mhm.
And as Tucker falls off and Boswell continues to kick well, and that Boswell gets the credit that's overdue.
Look, our hope is that Boswell doesn't have to kick near as many field goals that he did last year, especially from far out. All right, defensive lineman. If Derrick Harmon misses 1 or 2 games, who's the next man up?
I mean, I think you have just give more snaps to Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton. You just keep your guys out there a little bit more than maybe you would like to, especially for Hayward, who I know you want to manage that snap count, but you got to do what you got to do to get out of stadiums with victory. So Y.A. Black, though, is going to play meaningful snaps, even whenever Harmon gets back. Black has certainly earned a noticeable role rotating into this defense.
Look, Isaiah Loudermilk, the only calling card that he has at this point is really more so his play against the run than it is a pass rusher. Yeah, Black certainly proved can get after the passer, and I thought his pad level was good overall, especially in runs and all like that. So yeah, I'm with you. You'll probably see Hayward and Benton on the field a little bit more if Harmon does miss any games, and then especially if you get pass rush situations, Waya Black should definitely benefit there.
Yeah. What is Stulak saying about DeMarvin Leal? I just seen something on our site right now. Says, I will tell you that Mike Tomlin likes him, and as long as Derrick Harmon is injured, that gives them an opportunity to have an extra body. If I had to guess, I would say he's going to make it because Tomlin likes him, but if he doesn't make it, don't be shocked. So a little wishy-washy there, and I don't know how Leal replaces Harmon because they're not playing the same position right now.
That's kind of going to be right on both ends, isn't it?
It's it's a can't lose playing both sides, but I mean he seems to.
We need to hire Jerry Dulac, right?
Does Dulac make a final roster prediction? I know Fittipaldo did. I don't know if Dulac did.
I don't
but
know.
He's really pushed for Lee and he's been mentioning Leal some, but I don't know how that replaces Harmon. Like Leal is playing stand up linebacker. He's not playing 3-4 end, which is what Harmon was, which you kind of have to replace the most right now.
Right.
Anyway, all right.
All right. We got a couple of the emails out of the way there, and we're closing in on about an hour and 15 or so here, so we can wrap it up. We're going to have plenty to talk about on the Wednesday show, right?
Yeah, I think that is safe to say, Dave.
All right. No live stream chat tonight, right? On this Monday, that'll return next Monday. What else is going on? Just sitting here and waiting for I would imagine we're going to have a tracker up at some point once some of these names start leaking out, right?
Yeah, the tracker's already ready to go. We'll post it once there's at least one new name, probably 1 or 2 more names to start adding to that list. So be sure to check that. We'll post the initial 53 tomorrow, 4 p.m. Once that gets set, and we are on watch for any trades and everything else that comes after. So remember, the initial roster is just that, and it can move and shake and probably will move and shake after Tuesday at 4 p.m. So we got a lot to keep an eye on, and we'll be refreshing furiously these next 48 hours.
All right. We'll be back on Wednesday morning discussing the initial 53 active roster and the IR situation and potentially a little bit of salary cap update as well, too. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version, you can hit up there as well, too. So until Wednesday morning, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.